thank you for having us. I'm a volunteer, a community educator volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association, our local chapter that we just learned about. My connection to this disease is my mother. Sadly, we lost, my sister and I lost our mother in January 2021 to Alzheimer's. And oh, how I wish we knew all of the things we're going to look at together today when we were early in our journey and in her early 70s. So one of the things that happened with my mom that we didn't even know at the time was the blessing that it was. One of those things, oh, if we knew then what we knew now. Our mom was very independent and she was a crafter. So she knew every Michael's, every fabric store, everyone in town, and she went to them all the time. That was her love, and she would be collecting her things, and then she would be crafting. So we knew that for sure. My sister was out of town at the time, and she was in town visiting, and we all were at lunch. And the blessing with this was, we realize now, our mom was vulnerable enough to share with us that sometimes when she's out at places that she goes to all the time, Michael's or one of these places, she'll get in her car and then not be 100% sure the right direction to drive back home. At the time, we just said, okay, well, let's take care of that. My sister was smart enough in the moment to say, we can put a device in your car that no one has to know is there except us. We'll have an app on our phone. When you get somewhere, you need help, call us. We'll look at it and say it was good. Done. So we thought. But thank God we had that tracker in her car, because even though at the time we didn't recognize how serious that warning sign was, that device led us to the other warning signs that created our ability to take further action to get her to the doctor. So I'll share some more of my mom's stories along the way, but I wanted you to understand my connection to the organization and the disease. And I'm so grateful for all of you that your organization is doing this for you and just creating the awareness. This program is intended for us to do just that. Know a little bit more about what might be the difference in normal aging and something that could be different or unusual or a memory problem or potentially worse. So we're going to look through these together and learn together today. And as I said, feel free to ask any questions. We're going to visit with a fictional family, the Garcias, on our journey today, but they're also going through an experience of, is this normal stuff with mom or is this different stuff with mom? And so we're going to use them and their journey to help us along the way today. So Mary is the mother. She's 73. She lives alone. She has one daughter who's in town. That's Lydia. And then she has another daughter, Patricia, who's out of town. Well, that sounds familiar. Am I just saying that? And so there are concerns. Lydia is saying, I don't know if everything's okay with mom. She's acting differently. So let's see what happens with the Garcias. Worried about mom. She keeps losing things and the house is a mess. Probably normal. Someone like her, should we worry? Let's reach out to our old neighbor, Dr. Salaway. Now before we hear from Dr. Salaway, well, the Garcias are fictitious. Dr. Salaway is a real medical doctor who is an expert, a leader in aging and memory concerns and Alzheimer's disease. We'll hear from him a few times today.
As we get older, cognitive problems become more noticeable for almost everybody, and it can vary from person to person. Typically with age, people have trouble coming up with the word they want right when they want it. They have trouble remembering names and they don't think quite as quickly. What's more concerning, or what might be the beginning of a memory problem, is people have a lot of trouble coming up with words or names, and it's happening more frequently, and the words or names don't necessarily come to them later. and then they start misplacing things. But not just once in a while, because we all misplace things, but more often. And it begins to interfere day to day. That should be a warning sign for people that this might be the beginning of a memory problem.
So while we're here to talk about warning signs for Alzheimer's, first let's take a look at some of the words we hear and may interchange frequently: dementia, Alzheimer's, and let's hear from a few more experts on what are the differences there, and then we'll get into our warning signs. So what is dementia?
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow in the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual. But there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
And Alzheimer's is the most common of all types of dementia, which is why we wanted to focus on that today.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alzheimer described specific changes in the brain, what we now call the formation of plaques and tangles. Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and impacts memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to brain tissue loss and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's, such as memory loss, behavioral issues, problems with thinking, planning, and at the end stage, swallowing.
Sorry, this always does this. Here we go. Important to know the signs.
It's important to know what the warning signs of Alzheimer's are and to be on the lookout. We know that we change over time, and the warning signs of Alzheimer's can be warning signs of a number of things. But when you see those in yourself or in someone you care about, it's important to check it out, to consult with a doctor, to find out what you're dealing with.
Let's go into these. Now, these are not meant to be anything but informational. These things may appear in some people, not in others. It's definitely not a diagnosis, but this is good information for us to keep in mind to distinguish again the difference between normal signs of aging and what could be something different than that. So we're just going to go through each of these. The first warning sign is memory loss that disrupts daily life. So forgetting names, meetings, don't we all do that? I mean, every once in a while we all do that. That's considered normal aging, to have some forgetful moments. Forgetting information that was recently acquired, important dates or events, asking the same question over and over, increasingly relying on memory aids. So another story about my mom that should have been a warning sign. I have never seen more Post-it notes in my life than that she acquired in her kitchen. And we didn't know at the time that she literally had to write down everything on a Post-it note. And so when we would try to convert that even to a grocery list or something else to take action on, we were starting to understand, oh, this is a thing. So this is another thing that we see is they need notes, they need reminders, they need help with those things. The next sign, challenges in planning or solving problems. So someone who normally pays the bills or does the finances and occasionally makes a mistake or doesn't balance. I mean, that's me, we all do that, right? But someone who does that without flaw and then can't do it or struggles to do it, obviously that's a significant change in normal behavior. So let's see what happened with John.
I was probably spending 4 to 5 times more time preparing for something than I did, say, 5 or 10 years ago, because of I would lose my thought, I'd lose my focus, I'd get anxious, I wouldn't get to sleep. I was thinking this, I was in my sleep, I was thinking about what I was anxious about, which was I was trying to remember, which was I was trying to prepare, which I was trying to do. So it was really a vicious circle of, so I was able to control it a lot, so that people wouldn't see things, and there weren't things to be seen. It's what was disturbing me was what effort I had to put into to do the things I used to do more easily.
Called a completing familiar task. So driving to a familiar location, just talked about my mom and sometimes not being able to do that. Organizing a grocery list, remembering the rules to something, a favorite game some people do all the time. Typical is, how do I operate this microwave again? Or I didn't remember how to do this technology thing. Those are typical things. Let's hear what an expert says about this warning sign.
Some people have difficulty with math or with reading in a way that's unusual to them. And once again, this is a change in that person. So for example, we all know somebody who was never able to balance their checkbook, right? So that wouldn't be a warning sign for them. But if somebody who always balanced their checkbook to the penny suddenly was paying bills, the same bill over and over, and not able to balance their finances, well, that would be a sign for them.
Okay, next sign. Confusion with time or place. Forgetting where they are and how they got there. That's another sign. So I talked to you about my mom needing help getting back from places and the beauty of this instrument we put into her car. I would also get notified every time she was speeding. So there's that. That happened along the way. We didn't know that was going to happen, but I would get notifications that she would be at places all the time that she shouldn't be. And when I would ask her about it, she would say, I wasn't there. So this is another warning sign of familiarity with normal places versus, oh, is it Tuesday or is it Wednesday, but then figuring it out. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. This also can lead to difficulty with balance, which could lead to falls, which is very dangerous. Other things like trouble reading, judging distances, as opposed to normal vision changes that happen to us as we age.
Alzheimer's disease is not just a disease of memory. It can affect other things too. It can affect the way that we perceive what we see. So sometimes somebody in the early stages of Alzheimer's might go to the eye doctor because they're having trouble seeing, and in fact their vision is just fine, but the way they're perceiving what they're seeing may be difficult.
New problems with words and speaking or writing. Trouble finding words. Being in the middle of a sentence describing something very familiar to them and not being able to grasp the word that they want to use to be able to complete that thought. Saying the same thing over and over, not remembering that they had already made this comment. Just general struggle with vocabulary. Versus, we all have trouble every once in a while finding that word that we're looking for. And then we'll remember it later. Oh, yes, that was it. Let's see what happened for Phil.
The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with are words, which I've dealt with words my entire life, you know, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
Okay, next sign. Displacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. So do you do this like, where is my blah, 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 and then where was I last, I go to that room, go to that, maybe that's a normal thing. But losing something and not being able to retrace your stuff, having no ability to find that thing. And because of the lack of confidence and knowing where the thing is that is misplaced, we might accuse others of taking it because we don't know, we couldn't have done it. So that's a very common thing. Let's hear what the expert says about this one.
So some people wonder if, if they lose their keys or their glasses or their purse, is that a sign of Alzheimer's? And one thing that I would say about that is for most of us, we might misplace something, but then if we retrace our steps, we can usually find it. We can usually remember. For a person with Alzheimer's, sometimes they're not able to retrace their steps. Sometimes that memory is just gone. And so when they do find their keys next to the phone because they got interrupted by a phone call when they were coming in, they set their keys down in an unusual space, so there they are next to the phone. If that happened to you or me, we'd probably remember, oh yeah, the phone was ringing when I came in the door. I put down my keys. The person with Alzheimer's might not remember. They might wonder who's moving their keys around because they never put their keys by the phone. So that's just a little bit of a difference in some of the dynamics with losing things in Alzheimer's.
Okay, next time, decreased or poor judgment. With dealing with money, grooming, normal things that they would have done very well, they're now not because their judgment is impaired.
The way I kept my house, I wouldn't say I was OCD, but pretty close to it. And all of a sudden, everything was okay with me. It's like, oh, it's a pile, I'm tired. So my dining room table usually looked like it was someone's office because I always would say I would do it tomorrow. And then my bedroom, as far as clothing, I would just put it in a corner, put it in a chair. And all of this is just, I wouldn't say it looked like I was a pet rat, but really I was because I never threw anything away. I always would say, I'll get to it, but I never did get to it. So just the way of my standard of living, it was actually decreasing.
Withdrawal from work or social activities. Sometimes the lack of confidence and some of the things we already talked about, not being able to find words or remembering things, will create the inability to feel comfortable in social settings, whereas this person may have always been a social butterfly, wanted to be involved in everything. Now, sometimes do we feel uninterested in attending a family event? Yes, that's normal, but this is something that would be very unusual and continuous for this person.
One of the most common changes, and early on, is the person's comfort zone shrinks a little bit, and then that gets worse throughout the course of the illness. So they're less comfortable going out, they're less motivated to do things than they were in the past. So there's some change in day-to-day functioning that way. I think people also lose confidence in their cognitive abilities because they may not recognize someone or know their name or find the right word, and they'll feel awkward, and they don't want people to notice that, so they feel more comfortable at home or in situations with family where they're very, very comfortable with that wouldn't concern them. So people tend to withdraw a little bit and be less outgoing. That's can be one of the early signs of Alzheimer's.
Okay, and our last sign, changes in mood and personality. We talked about suspicion and someone stealing something when maybe they've misplaced it. So along those lines, just confusion, anxiousness.
Another early sign of Alzheimer's or dementia is subtle changes in behavior. So all of a sudden, the family may notice the person is more easily irritated, or more impatient, or a little moody, or have a shorter fuse, or more anxious. Now, there's lots of things that can cause that, but often that can be an early symptom of Alzheimer's or go along with the early symptoms of memory loss.
so those are 10 warning signs. Now what? Let's go back to our CF family and see how they're progressing. Back to Dr. Sullivan.
Memory is not all or none, especially when there are early symptoms or signs. So on a good day, people might function very well and not really even, no one notices there's a memory problem. But on other days, especially if they're tired, then things become more noticeable. So memory is variable. It's not all or none. And then there are different type of symptoms that develop for each person. So some people may have trouble with language, may have trouble with organizing themselves, may have trouble navigating while driving, and other people don't have the same symptoms. So you don't have to have every symptom of Alzheimer's to be concerned. And I think the most important thing is determining what has changed from that person's normal level of functioning. And usually people have a pretty keen sense of, what they can normally do well. And then when either they or the family notice that there has been some change from that usual pattern of functioning, that should be a warning sign to people. But they don't have to check up all the boxes.
Too fast here. Let's do a recap. So Dr. Salloway did a great one for us, but one of the things that I want to point out is, as he said, and there will be material shared on this for those of you on Zoom and in the room, but you do not have to have every one of the 10 things we just covered to take it seriously. There could be one of those things that is so abnormal from the person's usual behavior that should be taken seriously enough to at least take the next step, explore, have a conversation, what you think may be best for that person. Okay, the importance of early detection. We'll hear from more experts.
It's a very interesting phenomena that people who have memory problems are often less aware of it than family members or their friends who know them well. One of the reasons for that is our ability to monitor ourselves, which is an important part of brain function, decreases when we start having memory problems. Not in everybody, but commonly, and more than half the people with memory problems. And so the person is just not keeping track of the trouble they're having day to day. But the family members are, paying attention. If they're paying attention, they see, boy, this is starting to happen a lot, and the person's not aware of it. So the family's more aware, and they may talk to their loved one about it, and they say, I've noticed you've been repeating yourself. And they say, I'm not repeating myself. And that could either be due to the fact that they're not aware of it, or they may not want to acknowledge it.
I was so adamant about what was happening to Daryl. I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And this wasn't the person that I know. This wasn't the person. Daryl was my husband was very, he always had to be building or designing or working with his hands. And it was getting to the point where he wasn't, and he was becoming very frustrated when he was forgetting to do things or go places.
If you notice changes in a loved one or a friend, what you do. The Alzheimer's Association has also created this 10 steps to concerns. So the first step is, how do you assess, how do you even decide if there's enough concerns to do something? And then how do you have the conversation, what do you do to support that person? So we're going to go through these quickly, but these are things I hope you all can think about in your own personal lives, for yourself or for friends or for others. The first one is, what are the changes in memory, thinking, or behavior you see different than what you usually see? Are you the only person noticing these? Is someone else noticing these? What is the person doing? To really assess what you believe is happening. Are there other things happening in this person's life? Extra stressors, things that they're not normally dealing with, pressures that they don't usually have to have on a normal basis. You're doing this. You are all here learning right now about the possible signs. So educating yourselves on what these things are, using the resources available to you here with Truepoint and with Alzheimer's and other organizations. I mentioned this earlier. Has anyone else noticed this? Maybe talk to another family member or a neighbor or friend. Hey, have you noticed that Mary is, or whatever the thing is that you're noticing, and see if you have that confirmation. And have the conversation. So I'm not going to make light of this because this is hard. So having the conversation, these steps are helpful. I can tell you that for my sister and I, we didn't do it just once, we did it multiple times, and we were trying to figure out the best way to do it. I'm not gonna lie, we even played good cop, bad cop. I was bad, that's okay, that's what worked for our mom. So you've got to think about how you're going to have this conversation. So who should have it? So that's what we did. I should be the bad cop, she should be the good cop. Who should talk to the person? It may not be you, it may be a friend or a neighbor or someone else close to them. What would be the most comfortable for this person? Where and when? What time of day? Literally, what environment would make it the most comfortable to have a hard conversation? What are you going to say? So I know this might sound silly, but seriously think of a script because of how important this is, and think about how they might feel. So it could be, I've noticed that you have been forgetting blah, 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 blah. Have you noticed that? I'm worried about you. Do you have any concerns? Like, really be thoughtful, knowing your person, so it's going to be different for all of us, but really be thoughtful about what are the words you're going to say or have someone say. Offer to go with them to the doctor. So going to the doctor doesn't mean they have Alzheimer's. Going to the doctor means, hey, I love you, I'm worried about you. Let's go to the doctor and see what they say. There could be any number of things happening, but we better address this together. Are you game for that? Multiple conversations told you about that. You may have to do it many times because the first time it's going to be hard, but you're going to learn so much. Having it the first time, you're going to have data, you're going to have feelings, you're going to learn so much, and you're going to be more prepared for the next conversation when you need to have that. Reach out for support. We're going to talk even more about Alzheimer's support and all of the things that are available to us. Most importantly, see a doctor. So what kind of doctor do we see? A lot of people go to their primary care doctor first because, like we said, who knows what it could be. There could be any number of things happening. But there are many specialists that then the primary care physician could refer the patient to, depending upon what is happening with them at that time. So when we look at, let me get back to where our status here. Hold on.
There are a number of benefits.
Oh, that's not right. Let me get back to what I was supposed to be. So sorry. See the doctor.
There are a number of benefits in early detection of Alzheimer's. For one thing, a person is able to have a voice in what happens next. They can make plans. They can live life more on their own terms. They can also make plans for the future, financial plans, care plans. They can let people know what they want, which can be a real gift later on. It also allows time for families to make plans and to make decisions about who can do what and figure out care and those kinds of issues. Some people are interested in clinical trials. Clinical trials allow people to have access to treatments that aren't available yet. And for some people, that can be a really important thing to pursue.
So as a recap to what we learned from this expert, we're going to pay attention to anything that seems unusual for this person's behavior. We're going to plan. First, we're going to assess. We're going to plan for a conversation. Who should have it, when, where. Maybe write a script. Maybe have it multiple times. Offer to go to the doctor with them and take action by going to a doctor. Okay, seeking diagnosis. Before we go into how to seek the diagnosis, let's test our knowledge on what we've looked at so far. So what do you guys think about the statement? There's currently no way to diagnose Alzheimer's disease. What do you think? False. False, yes. Yes, false. There's so many ways, a number of assessments and tests, conditions we can see, and now with a pretty high degree of certainty to diagnose Alzheimer's. Here's some of the assessments considered for Mary Garcia and some of the ones that she actually did go through. Medical history, physical exam, had some additional tests. There are many that could happen. Brain imaging is something that we could do to rule out other things, if there's not something else happening. So there are many ways that we can assess the situation to determine if indeed we are dealing with Alzheimer's. Now we're going back to the Garcias. See what the numbers are up to now.
Someone could have high blood pressure that's out of control, or they might have a thyroid condition that's not regulated, or diabetes that's not right, or on a medication that actually can cause memory loss. Drinking too much alcohol can make memory worse. So there are a lot of factors that go into cognitive difficulty with aging that some of them can be remedied. And so we want to do everything we can to improve cognitive ability and quality of life.
So again, a recap on what we just looked at. Everybody's different, so the experience, the diagnosis, the testing, the doctors that we seek out will be different in each of us. There could be something else happening, so it's important to start possibly with your primary care doctor. So what happens next if the diagnosis is indeed Alzheimer's? So I mentioned this as we started. I'm going to go through it again just because there's so much there. The Alzheimer's disease. The traits of the visual approach that we have. And I know we've already looked at this, but one more time. The Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. This 800 number has been popping up here, and it will be on all the materials that you have access to. That 800 number is so powerful, I can't even describe it in words. It is staffed 24/7 by experts. Seasoned experts that will answer any question about anything. that you have related to memory care, questions, concerns about potential Alzheimer's. So, and it's free. So I encourage you to grab that, make sure you have that number and use it. That's why it's there. It's an amazing resource. So we just talked about the helpline. The alz.org website is very deep. There's so much there on every type of thing imaginable. And you can find it in different communities, not just in our Cincinnati area. Now, I'm a little bit of a walking advertisement today for the upcoming walk. But please know that there are many, many, many ways that you can join the fight to support and to learn more. Very quickly, volunteer. It's what I'm doing. I'm a community educator, but there are things that you can do that are very small or very large, including joining the walk, walking yourself, getting your group together, and so forth. There are many advocates for the organization who go to bat, who speak out, who understand and advocate for the needs and rights of patients. You can do clinical trials. So many opportunities here, and by going to the website Trial Match, you can learn more about what those are. The walk. The walk this year is the first Saturday of October. It usually is the first Saturday of October. And have you guys participated before? I'm seeing a few. No? Yes? Okay. I have for the past several years, and it's just fun. I mean, it's a short walk. It's not, you can walk, but it's not really a serious walk. It's more fun. It's balloons and entertainers and enjoyment of one another and raising money if that's what you choose to do for all of the research and the cause. So it's an awesome event. And then there's another one, the longest day. So this is summer solstice. So the day that has the most light is called out by the organization just as a way to increase awareness, support research efforts. There are all types of opportunities there. So many, many ways, if you choose to get involved, then you can do that. So that's all we have today. Again, these 10 warning signs, not a diagnosis. Information. We're all different. We all may or may not be impacted differently. So just recognize if you see a thing, take note and maybe have a conversation with someone else and decide it's something that you should take action on. Okay. Hi, yes.
Well, hold on one second. Let me give you the microphone. Sorry.
Are the things that you can do that will help prevent Alzheimer's?
Are the things that you can do that will help prevent. So another commercial I'm going to give you. We do have another community education program called Healthy Living for the Brain and Body. The answer is yes. There are things that you can do that could slow the progression of the disease. The disease can be genetic. So there are some things that we can't control, but are environmental things. Yes, there are many things that we can control that helps us to prevent how quickly that may happen to us if indeed it's going to happen to us. So again, I know I'm a commercial here, but the Alzheimer's Association has that type of information as well. And what are some of those things that we can do as far as for our brain and body, exercising our mind and so forth.
Yeah, put it on. So if you go to your website, does it list in the communities that you're in doctors who are specifically associated with the disease and would be a better starting place maybe?
That's a great question. So you all heard that the website lists doctors in your area familiar with the disease. I actually do not know the answer to that question. That website is so massive. I haven't done that type of digging. However, I'm always going to recommend call the hotline because if they don't know, they will tell you where to go to find out.
Any other questions? Questions on Zoom? I have a couple questions. If you can't answer these,
Oh, yeah,
so
I'll tell you.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
justify it. Is there an average age of onset? And is it more prevalent in male or female?
So it is typically more prevalent in female. It is genetic, however, we said that there's a genetic component. I don't have an age that I can tell you, but what I can tell you is that it is happening earlier and earlier. Onset is happening much earlier in age than it used to, and it may be because we're more aware of it, but we are noticing, and the research is picking up on that, being more visible earlier than we have known it to be before.
Let's see, any tools that you're aware of to determine the difference between normal aging versus decline?
So I think what we just looked at.
Yes,
in
in
warning
addition
signs.
to that.
In addition to that, again, on the website, you can do further digging. And what I mean by that is a blowout really of what we just looked at. Some more descriptors on what that might look like versus normal aging. So the information, the more you dig, the deeper and the more voluminous the information is. So this was a highlight, but on the website, there will be more information.
All right, good. Does anybody else have any
I do have a
questions?
question.
Oh,
What
yeah,
if a
hold on.
doctor, I could speak loudly, if a doctor says someone has Alzheimer's, what are they seeing? Is it an MRI? Is it what is it?
I mean, it depends on the kind of assessment you have had done with the person, because we saw the list of all the different assessments, but it's a deterioration of our brain, and whatever the assessment is that determines that. My mother had an MRI, but my mother also did a verbal quiz in the doctor's office, which is, I understand, very common. What year is it? Who is our president? Some of those types of questions that literally happened right there in the doctor's office that help that doctor determine then what assessments do we have to take to tell us what is or is not happening.
You spoke about your mom and her passing away. How long did she stay with you? Did you care for her in her home? When did you make a decision, or was there a decision made for some sort of institutionalization?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So let's go back to the tracker in the car. The big one was she was driving to church at 9 o'clock at night instead of 9 o'clock in the morning. So I think for my sister and I, that was like smack in the face probably that we needed. So the first thing that we did was that whole conversation that we just went through. We did that. We got her to agree to go to primary care, had the assessments that we were talking about. And for us, we let her stay in her home. She was living alone for a period of time. I can't remember the exact number of months, but my sister and I went over every single day to administer meds and to make sure she was safe and all those things. And then we started doing all the things, disconnecting the stove top, all of that. And to the point that we realized this is not sustainable by us. So we hired in-home care, plethora of resources for that and all levels. And then we moved to a memory care facility. So we tried to make that facility look and feel as much like home as we could with all the pictures of memorabilia and so forth. She was in memory care for 3 years. COVID, that was hard because no visitation. So that was just hard on all of us, of course. So that was our journey. That's how we dealt with it. I'm so happy to have my sister as my partner in crime. I appreciate very much that we had each other, but everyone's journey is so completely different. That was our journey, so thank you for asking.
Anybody's interested, excuse me,
Cleveland Clinic for Women is currently doing a brain study where they are looking for neurological diseases over the course of the rest of your life. They are always looking for new participants. It takes 2 days up in Cleveland. I'm a participant. It includes everything from memory tests to MRIs and blood tests. And they are looking to enroll over 500,000 women internationally. So you look at Cleveland Clinic's research area and find out if it's still looking for people in Ohio.
Thank you. Anybody else have any goodness like that to share with us? That was wonderful.
I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago, and this was the subject. They were talking about, I think, Europe, and I don't quite remember where, but something to the effect of they were trying to group people together to live that would be like-minded anyway. So in the video, she said, my husband likes to work with his hands, but instead of like in America, where we just kind of put people in a memory care unit, this was kind of like grouping individuals together into a community that they would have enjoyed anyways inherently from like their personality, who they were. Like, does this person wake up early normally? Are they a night owl? What's being done socially and in like a living capacity to improve or enhance their experience as like individual beings apart from the disease?
Wow. First of all, fascinating.
It was cool when I was
have
listening to it. I was like, why aren't we doing that? Like if I have this disease, it makes me sad sometimes when I think about some of the care. So my grandmother had it, and it was not awesome to watch. It was heartbreaking. I would just love to know like what improvements. So it makes you scared to think that's going to happen to you from some of what I've seen.
So I am not aware of that fabulous scenario you just painted for us that may exist. I do not know the answer to that. I can tell you from our own personal experience, which you had as well, we were so thoughtful about putting my mom in a place where they had all of the kinds of activities she thought she would enjoy. The crafting that we talked about, music and those kinds of things. What we found is she because of, the warning sign is all about the social withdrawal. So it's awesome that they're trying this, and that sounds fabulous. However, how the person reacts to that may be very different, even though that was something that they previously enjoyed. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know what's the answer, but I just wanted you to hear our, because we
I'd like
the
to
same.
take on it. Like, it's very important where they, like you said, where you're choosing can be very
They offer you those
specific.
things. Yes, yes.
Thanks.
Other questions? I've got another one. Speak to some of my fellow participants over at the Blue Ash Rec Center. We'll go to workout classes in the morning, and I hear a lot of them saying they will spend time in sauna because they've heard that there's preventative benefits associated with Alzheimer's. I don't know if it's, I'm just wondering if you've heard that or.
Let's find out. I know, somebody look up. I honestly don't know. Does anyone know?
Yeah, I don't know if it's or not, but thought it was an interesting.
It's very interesting.
You've read that? That's correct.
Nice.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Do you recall where you read that by chance?
It's on the internet, it's gotta be real.
Right?
Gotta be real.
Actually,
On a journal article that supports it.
I mean, here we go.
You found it?
There's a couple of journal articles looking at it. I haven't read them fully.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Well, okay, let's go.
I was just gonna say, a reminder for those in the room, there are some materials on the orange table over here, including a bookmark with the 10 warning signs, which is really handy. And for those of you on Zoom, there will be follow-ups so that you also receive materials that are being shared in the room today. And then, of course, you've got all the resources we just talked about. Thank you.
Great, yes. Let's stick with it. Thank you for spending your time with us, and we really appreciate that. And good luck with the walk on, it's Friday, right?
It's a Saturday.
16th or 16th.
It's the first Saturday, we went that
Okay.
in October.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the website and I noticed you were referencing 600 communities, or the organization was, I think Cincinnati's was 14th, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
Cincinnati's so high.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was really great to see.
Very well attended
Great
there, and
support.
I had the privilege of volunteering for the annual gala that Cincinnati does, which was at Music Hall in Lovely, but raised over $300,000 locally for the association. It was just overwhelming in a good way. So Cincinnati has a very, very big presence.
That's great. Okay, so let me just say a couple more things, and then, as I said, you're free to hang out here as long as you like. Sir, you were asking about positions on websites, so this may be particularly of interest to you. Our next lunch and learn within the aging space is going to occur on October the 9th. And it's entitled Brain Health in Older Adults, featuring Dr. Rona Schatz. She's the medical director of the Memory Disorders Center, and she's the Bob and Sandy Hyman Chair in Research and Education of Alzheimer's Disease, University of Cincinnati. So that should be a very interesting discussion, and I think invitations have gone out for that, but I'm sure we'll resend those if you haven't received it. But we'd love to have you guys be available to attend if you're able. And the last thing I would say, we talked about Alzheimer's and dementia today as a subset of aging, in general, and there's a plethora of topics, and none of them are easy. I think we can all admit that. I'm not going to stand up here and profess that we have the answer to every question. We don't, but what we are doing is we're being vigilant about meeting people in different spaces within aging in the Cincinnati community. Some of those organizations extend nationwide, like the Alzheimer's Association, right? So what I would say is, if we can be of any help whatsoever to any of you, any of your family members, we may not be able to solve the problem, but I'm very hopeful that we can point you at least in the right direction and connect you with individuals who focus their time on a day in, day out basis with, whatever that particular issue is. So we know the topics are sensitive. It's a privilege to work with all of you. We appreciate that trust. And again, we just want to be helpful. It's the main thing. So again, thank you all for your taking time out of your day to attend. Like I said, feel free to mix and mingle. And again, thanks a lot, Dee, for coming out and tackling this difficult but important topic.